Hey everybody, this is Eric from CoderLifeline.com, where we help coders save hours of their time and tons of frustration so they can get their projects done faster. Today I'm going to talk to you about a very important topic for freelance web designers and developers, and that is how to get paid more for your freelancing services. And the best part, I'll show you how to do this with just 3 simple steps. But first, I want to start with a little story. This is me. My first job out of college was as a pharmacist working at a large trauma center in Indianapolis, Indiana. I got paid well, about $40 an hour. At the same time, though, I was making a very similar salary to those who'd been working for 10 or 15 years longer than I did. That was because those who were more experienced were doing a job that was not much different from what I was doing functionally. Now, once I transitioned to a healthcare consultant role, my employer was charging anywhere from $250 an hour and up to $375 an hour for my time. Now, of course, that's not what I got paid, but it is what others were willing to pay for my services. So that begs the question, why? Why would anyone be willing to pay such astronomical rates for the work I perform? Well, the difference was in the perceived value of what I delivered to them. You see, price was less material, not completely unimportant, but it was less significant because the customer understood the high value of what was being delivered. They understood that what they were getting would help them make a lot more money than they were investing in the work that was being done. And there's a big clue for what any freelancer can apply in their own business to make more money from their work. Well, first, I want to talk about something that's very common, and maybe you've even done this yourself, but it is common to undervalue your work. And let me start by saying I totally get it. It sounds logical. Let me offer a good deal to a potential client and even do some free work so they can see how good I am, and then they'll pay me what I'm worth. And I'm not saying that this can't work. What I am saying is that I've seen this strategy not work well for freelancers and consultants much more often than when it has worked well. In my experience, what I've seen is that when you give someone a, quote, introductory price for your services, you've just kind of told them what you think it's actually worth, and they tend to expect more discounts from here on out. Again, I'm not saying it can't work if you have the right, rational, reasonable client to think that you can charge them more for your services in the future. But what I would do is here challenge you to think about appropriately valuing your work before you ever have to undercharge. And what I'm about to teach you should really help you do exactly that. So let's get started with our 3-step formula on how to get paid more for your freelancing services with 3 simple steps. And here are the steps. And of course, we'll go into detail on each of one of these next. The first step is to determine what your time is worth per hour. I'll show you a process to do exactly that. The second step is to determine the value of your services from your client's perspective. And I really want to emphasize that last part, from your client's perspective. And the third step is simply to price your services based on that value that you determine in step number 2. So what is your time worth, and how do we determine this? So I found it helpful to categorize this in 2 buckets. First, we have some kind of hourly wage. And these are essentially comps of salaries for the same or similar type of work that you're proposing to do. There are different ways to do this. You see, the freelancer website offers a rates database. The Professional Association for Design, or the AIGA, offers a method based off of your expenses for doing business. But I'm going to show you a different way, and really my preferred way, to do this using labor statistic data. From the government, you can find labor statistic data, and I'll show you how you can use that data to track down the numbers you need and make the calculations for the estimate for your hourly rate. The second component of this involves a personal premium. And this is entirely subjective and personal, but you should consider what you're giving up in exchange for any particular project work. Consider the sacrifices you'll have to make in order to take on the new project. Are there any personal events you'll have to miss or goals you'll have to postpone because of what the project will demand? And these 2 together will give you your estimate for what your time is actually worth. At this point, I want to show you how to do this using the BLS data, or the Bureau of Labor Statistic data. So we'll find that on the web. We'll just search here on Google for the BLS. And here we find it for the US. And keep in mind, each government has similar statistics, and you can certainly go straight to those statistics and find the numbers you're looking for in a similar way. Or you could use these numbers and then apply an adjustment that's more specific to your other country. If you have any questions about that, please do reach out to me. I'll give you my contact information at the end of the video, and I can help you work through that. But we'll use the BLS data for now. And at this point, we're going to find what we call the Occupational Employment Statistics page, and that's under Subjects. And we go down to Employment by Occupation. This is the OES data. And then we want to go to the data themselves, the occupational profiles. And you see here now we have a list of the major occupation groups, the way the government looks at them. So we want to find one that's relevant or would contain the jobs that we are thinking about and looking at. So here we're going to go to computer and mathematical occupations. You see even greater detail here in the different kinds of computer and mathematical occupational jobs. We have this one, which is software developers and programmers, and we will go through web developers. And here is the data that we're looking for. So we get the actual number of employees that are included in this data set, and here an hourly wage, which is the main number we'll need, and then they have that number annualized as well. So an average salary per year of $68,670. We also have some data down here that can be helpful to you if you consider yourself in the top 10% of web developers. Then you might look at this number instead, and this is the top 25%. So you can use some of these other numbers as your baseline. We're going to go ahead and use the 3302, and I'll show you how to do that. I've pulled this over here. We take the 3302. At this point, we are thinking of this as a paid salary, so we know that an employer has additional expenses for us if we are an employee, which include our health benefits and insurance and etc., those kinds of things. At this point, we can add about 10 or 15% to that. We're going to add just 10% at 330, and we come up with $36.32 per hour. Now, this is important here. If you notice, this is a number because this is where the data came from May of 2014. And because of that, here we're making this video in the future, we need to make sure we adjust this number upwards for inflation. And I will show you how to do that next. We are going to go back to the BLS website, and here we're going to find inflation and prices. And we're going to go to the Consumer Price Index, which is the CPI. Those will be the numbers that we're looking for. And there are a lot of different kinds of CPIs, as you'll see, but I'm going to show you the one that we're going to want to use. Go to the databases. Now again, with a list of several different kinds of things that are included that are different, we'll just go to top picks. And when we go to top picks, we get a nice list of different kinds of CPIs that we could choose from. You notice there are some specific to specific locations, recreation, education, and communication. We're going to try to find one here that is relevant to services in computer services. And as we look through this, we don't see anything relevant to computer services. We do see some for medical care services. So we'll go to this one, which is other goods and services, because it's a general bucket for other services. We're going to retrieve that data. And this mess of numbers is the table that we need to do our calculations. And I'll show you how to do that now. So here, I've pulled this table over, and you can see there are just two numbers that we need out of all of these numbers here. And the first is from May of 2014. So we just look up the number associated with May of 2014, and we get 407.178. That's actually going to become our denominator in this index that we're going to create to adjust for inflation. The second number we want to pull is the most recent number that's available. And here, in this case, it's November of 2015. So we take that number, and that will be our numerator. When we take this index, it becomes a 1.027. So all we need to do at this point is to go ahead and multiply our $36.32 hourly rate by the 1.027, and we get $37.32 per hour. So now we're ready to adjust for our personal premium. And again, This is very personal and very subjective, but you can think of things like if this is a particularly busy time for you, is this during holiday, what personal things are you going to miss, what opportunity costs are there in terms of hobbies and training, and then you can apply any kind of factor that makes sense for you, anywhere from 5 to 20%. In this case, we will just choose 10%. And it gives us a number of $41.05. So this is really the main number that we're looking at for step 1 of this process, which is to estimate our hourly rate as a starting point. We're ready to move to step 2. Step 2 is to determine the value of services from the customer's perspective. And this is really where you're going to have the biggest opportunity to start making more money from your services. So there isn't much that we can do about the national wage averages we just saw. They kind of are what they are, and we can't really change the inflation numbers. So that's what's different about step 2, is you can continually get better and better in step 2 and ultimately find yourself paid more for the same amount or less work in the future as you become more efficient. Now, step 2 is all about 2 major things. One is value, and the second is from your customer's perspective. So step 2, you really want to think about becoming a great value detective. How can you get really good at unearthing value from your customer's perspective? And the ways to do that primarily is to learn how to ask great questions. So specifically, you want to ask questions around the value of the work you're going to provide to the customer. So there's a key concept from a great book on consulting here in the sources at the bottom of the slide that really points out that solutions themselves have no inherent value, but rather they derive their value based upon the problems they solve or the results that they achieve. So some good examples of questions you can ask your potential customer are, what hassles are we eliminating once this work is in place? How does this problem show up for you? What kind of results would you hope for once this work is in place? How would you define success 6 months from now with our work together? In addition, you're going to want to learn how to minimize assumptions. And this is really easy to do for anyone who isn't terribly self-aware. It's so easy to make assumptions, and especially as experts, we can tend to make assumptions because we take so much for granted, so much that we know, we expect others to know, and we expect to be the expert. But make sure that you're trying to minimize your assumptions. And again, best way to do this is to really start asking great questions. So your customer might say things like, I think my website's out of date, or I want a website that looks good. And as you know, and I'm sure you've experienced, that can mean lots of different things based on who you're talking to. So you'll want to dig into those kinds of comments that you hear from your potential customers to get a much clearer picture of exactly what they want and what they value. And then obviously you're going to deliver on that value and make them delighted customers. Beyond taking things just for granted, this is also your opportunity to dig further into all of the areas your customer may find additional value in the work that you're proposing to do for them. So maybe they just want you to add a membership layer to their website, but you also know that you can add in some easy ways to automate referrals, or you can help their conversion rate with a slightly updated design, or you can give them more web traffic with enhanced SEO. So those kinds of things can make a big difference for you as well, and you're kind of bringing those up and highlighting those to the customer. Those things highlight that you are a real expert as well. So you can think of questions for your potential customer, things like, tell me what you mean by a whole new design. What kinds of problems are you having by not having an updated website? Explain what it looks like to be, quote, seamlessly integrated across platforms, as you mentioned. Have you thought about the growth you'd like to achieve with these changes? What would it look like for you if I did this redesign perfectly? Now that you have a great idea of where your potential customer finds value in your work, now you're ready to move on to the final step, which is to price on value. Based on what you learned in step 2, now you're able to make that price. And the best way to go through this is really to show you this. So here's a case study where let's consider a customer is proposing to add a membership component to an existing website, and you estimate that it would take you about 40 hours to do the work. If we price this the way we traditionally price, we just estimate our hourly rate times the 40 hours, and we get about $1,600. So that would be our charge to complete the project. Now, if we use a value-based approach, we are going to be doing more investigating, asking more questions, proposing more things to the potential customer. And out of that, we get information that the customer estimates that about 100 of his customers will become members. He's going to start by charging about $19 a month for his membership site. And in general, he's looking to get more traffic like most people are. And we know that we can boost it by about 10% with just a little bit of SEO optimization. So with that in mind, we can actually take his potential revenue from the changes, from after the changes are in place, and use that in our pricing. So we take $19 a month times the 100 plus the additional 10 members we think we can get with the boost in SEO. That gives them about $2,000 per month in income. Now that adds up to over $25,000 a year in income. So at this point, we really have an opportunity to charge about $2,500, which is 50% higher than $1,600 we were going to charge with the traditional method, and still deliver a 10-to-1 ROI to the customer. And there aren't many customers who would balk at a 10-to-1 return on investment for them. So we've gone through a lot. I just want to take a minute to summarize here. The first step is to really understand your hourly rate as a starting point for your work. The second step is to determine the value of your services from your customer's perspective. You want to know how the customer defines value and understand the pain that they're going to avoid or the results that they are going to achieve with your work. And then ultimately, the third step is to be able to price your freelancing services based on that value. So that's it all. I hope that this has helped you to think about the opportunities to price your services more on value and ultimately help you get paid more for your freelancing services. If you have any questions at all, this is how you can reach me. Please do reach out. I love helping people do this kind of stuff. If you like the video, please give it a thumbs up and share it with any of your friends or followers who you think might benefit. I've got some helpful links in the description below. And until I see you again, keep on doing awesome things on the web for yourself and others. Thanks, guys.